Hi, and welcome to this episode of Great Minds Print Alike, where I get the opportunity to speak to great minds in our business and our industry about all things marketing. I'm delighted today to welcome our guest, Dara Goolsby, Senior Marketing Director of Sally Beauty. Dara, we've known each other for a number of years, but for our listeners who don't know you, can you start by just explaining a little bit about your journey in marketing?
Yeah, Helen, thank you firstly for having me on this. This is great. And so I've always worked in marketing. And over the years, I've worked across various different sectors, all mainly business to consumer facing. Done stints in home furnishing retail, moving on to sports fashion. And now I'm in the world of beauty, leading a full marketing team on online and offline activity.
So one of the reasons I wanted to talk to you today, something that I've been really conscious of, I think, over the last few months has been how marketing, or even females in marketing, are perceived within our industry. And to put that into a little bit of context, I feel that lots of young women come into marketing as a creative industry. Lots of young women come into marketing, and the perception can often be about marketing that it's the colouring in department. And I feel that sometimes, or have historically felt that sometimes myself. Am I actually taken seriously as a marketeer? Am I taken seriously as a woman in business because I work in marketing? Is that something you've experienced? How have you got over that?
Yeah, absolutely. I totally get that sentiment, and indeed that was one of the things that attracted me to working into marketing. The creativity, no day's the same. It evolves, and I also like seeing that delivery, that it's something that's been created and planned for however long in advance is then delivered, and what impact that has. I think it's really crucial, and something that I have to remind myself of quite often is attaching that to data and what that is driving. What is the contribution? And we're lucky now, we're in an era where attribution is a buzzword. Everyone wants to measure that performance. And indeed, we've got better tools than ever before to measure that. But understanding the value of what you did with social media, or what the print has done, or whatever, is really key. And I think that will help articulate the contribution and the value add that marketing brings. If you talked at social media reach, you could translate that into media value and what that value of reach would be if you were to buy it. And likewise, there is those metrics. I'd probably take it a step further in being aligned within the business about what that measurement should be. Is it revenue? Is it clicks or impressions? Is it conversion rate? Each business, like we talked about before, are all different. So each business will maybe value those different metrics differently. So where is the emphasis? And try to make sure you can measure that contribution.
I think, you're right. You're definitely right. I couldn't agree more. I know over the last 18 months, as we've changed our focus within Precision Proco, from being ultimately marketing being a sales support function to being a function in its own right, with metrics, with systems to allow us to monitor what we're doing and the impact of what our activity is. I've definitely seen the narrative around what we do as a department and around what I do as an individual changing, no end. I can confidently go into our leadership team meeting now and able to tell that team what my team has delivered in the last month. And that has, I'm sure, changed the view of marketing within our business. I remember when we worked together a number of years ago on social media, we didn't even have a report at that point. No. So a lot of what we were doing was gut instinct. And I don't want to take away from that, because I firmly believe in going with the heart sometimes, particularly when it comes to creative. The metrics so important.
Yeah, I agree. And that's the wizardry. That's a special bit of being a marketer, and particularly the creative marketer, blending that emotional connection, and kind of knowing that for what his customer needs, as well as being able to tie into what it delivers for the business.
And to be honest, I still want marketing to be a bit of the colouring in department, because I want us to be the ones who adds the sparkle, who makes it feel special, who creates the customer engagement and that feeling that we're all after, that creates advocacy with the customer.
Yeah.
But I also want to be really seriously taken seriously when it comes to the actual delivery and what value we can add to the business.
I would almost liken it to sort of like putting clothes on. So you've got your skeleton of your body.
Yeah.
That is your commercial purpose or your objective. What do we have to deliver? We need to sell something, right? And, you know, the layers of clothing, let's say, that we put on is the way in which we're shaping that. So the sparkle or the headband or whatever it may be is part of reaching that consumer, that audience that you've got. It's still part of it.
Yeah.
But we need to understand that if we're doing that, what is it?
What it's delivering.
What it's being delivered. Yeah, indeed. So I think that offers more. And I think it's also really good from a personal development point of view. You'll be, you know, we all have to have the sit downs and the reviews with your line managers, and actually to be able to articulate this initiative delivered this and so on, keeps track of your own success.
Yeah. And I certainly feel so much more comfortable now going in for my one-to-ones with John, because I have those metrics, and I'm not a numbers girl. You know, I don't spend loads of time in Excel spreadsheets. I find that quite difficult. That's not my skill set. But what I have found is there are loads of tools out there that can make that really, really easy for me. And I think, you know, when I go back a few years, and I think I was nervous of the KPIs and I was nervous of the numbers, I actually had no need to be nervous of them, because there's lots of skill, you know, there's lots of support out there, whether it be systems or people who can help us with, you know, really, you know, analysing that data.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I think for some people, maybe there's not an expectation of marketing being in that, thinking in that way. But if we can marry up the data with the creative output, I think we're all onto something there. And it probably takes away some of those stereotypes.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it gives us credibility as marketeers in terms of what we're delivering to the business. And that's something that I'm keen that all younger marketeers, I guess, going into our industry feel confident about, you know, having credibility, and being taken seriously in whatever meeting room that may be, and the value that marketing can add.
Yeah, absolutely. It's really crucial that once you have that understanding of what the output has delivered versus you know, that performance and how the business, let's say, review that, you can go in any which way. Should you repeat it the same? Should it be different? Was it, you know, what are the variables? And I think as a marketeer, that's really interesting to manipulate or influence those variables for greater gain.
Are you a fan of in-house, or are you a fan of outsourcing your marketing specialisms within the business?
That's a good question. I think both. I mean, over my career, I've worked in businesses where there's been a heavy dependence on agency support. And also, you know, equally, I'm leading a team now where the bulk of our resource and support is in-house.
Right.
I find that, I mean, I'm reflecting only on this probably now as you're asking me, but I think that when you're working with agency support, that's again quite a specific skill set to manage you know, your vendor relationships, to manage the partner performance, and to keep also communication really, really clear, frequent, and you know, it's really important, I think, that your agency partners are updated. When it's in-house, in theory, that should move and work much easier, much faster, because you're all there and you're all appreciating the business. I think it's nice to get a bit of a blend. I probably would prefer working in a space where there's more in-house support.
Okay.
And that maybe the agency partners are more on that technical piece. I think that maybe works best. Because as an in-house team, it's really important that not only you're across all the output, but that you've got that commercial alignment to the business.
Yeah.
And that focus.
Yeah. As we're growing as a business, and John and I had our CEO had this conversation only a couple of episodes ago. One of the challenges that we've found as our business has grown, and I've tried to scale the marketing accordingly, has been that piece of making a decision of when and where I use third-party support. And I've had some false starts with that.
Yeah.
I'm using some third-party at the moment. I'm interested to what you said there about there being a skill set of how you manage third-party, because that's something I'm learning at the moment. And I'm well progressed in my career now, but it's new for me to manage third-party. But I also feel like I would struggle with the size of organisation I'm working in now to be able to have all those skills in-house. So like you say, the best bit is a balance of the both.
Yeah, indeed. Last week, actually, we had a full team meeting. So there's 34 of us.
Wow.
Within the marketing team for Sally Beauty. And so we had an away day and all day focus on marketing, celebrating some of its successes, and also getting ready and being primed for what we need to attain going forward. And one of my last slides, my closing slides, and the presentation that I delivered there was about, do we have the right squad? So I view it, and my team are probably sick and tired of me saying this, but I say it's a squad.
Yeah.
And don't want to liken it to a sporting analogy, because I'm sure I would get that wrong. But what I'm trying to say there is that it's a moving piece. It isn't. I don't view it as a fixed team of support. I think players or people need to come in and out as and when they're needed.
Interesting.
And so I'm looking at a bigger squad of players, a bigger squad of partners, let's say. But indeed, that there is a blend, and sometimes we need them and sometimes we don't. And sometimes their position in that squad becomes more important and more crucial versus other times. So I'm trying to create a culture where that is more fluid based on our needs.
Okay.
And also having a blend of sort of like ongoing retained partnerships, but also freelance creators and, people that can flex in and add whatever we need when we need it. But we have to prime and have that squad ready on standby.
I love that analogy of a squad. I think that's a really interesting way of looking at how we need to be so flexible as marketing leaders. Because as you said earlier as well, the requirements of us change almost on a daily basis, don't they? The consumer's requirement changes. We can have all these fabulous things like marketing calendars in place. But one of the things I think over the years that I've understood is when you start on a Monday, what a Friday looks like can be very, very different. And I think that's one of the key skills of any marketeer at whatever level in the organisation you're at. That need to be flexible as a marketeer is so key. Just going back a little bit in terms of in your early career. So when you first went into marketing, where did you expect to be, when you were in your, 10 years later, 15 years later? And do you think you've achieved that?
So I originally wanted to do marketing. I really enjoyed it. I did it as in my degree. I did retail marketing, and I've spent most of my career working for retailers. I was content and aspired to just be a marketing manager.
Yeah.
That's what I wanted to be, to get that far. And I guess I started as doing a placement in an advertising agency whilst I was at university, marketing assistant, marketing executive, and then I finally got a role as a marketing manager, and then started to add in the line management experience, and then different territories, different countries, and so on. So yeah, that was really initially what my first thought was. I just
Yeah.
wanted to be a manager, let's
Yeah,
say.
and I was the same. I think, but also importantly for me is I wanted to feel like I was making a difference in
Yeah,
whatever organization I was in. I wanted to feel like I had a voice and I was making a difference.
yeah, no, absolutely. And what I still love about marketing, and maybe it's more about me, that you're always ahead because you're always planning
Yeah,
ahead, planning next year and what month, whatever it may be. And I'm naturally quite nosy or curious. And in that respect, you always are aware of the plans ahead of
yeah,
time. I really like that. And
yeah,
I feel like I'm in a privileged position to have that exposure to whatever is coming and how a business is going to innovate. Um, so that coupled with marketing has been a really perfect mix for me. But like you, I do agree. I think having more influence and
yeah,
involvement in the decisions that have been made, I saw as the only way of being able to achieve that is becoming a manager.
yeah,
Definitely.
yeah. Just thinking about again those early days in your career, and I think people, I'm key to me, and at the moment very close to my heart is supporting young people coming into our industry, whether that's the print industry or marketing in general. I reckon I made some mistakes along the way. Yeah,
I definitely
more than I care. Yeah, it's more than I care to remember. But I guess what's the one piece of advice you give, particularly young women coming into this into this industry? What's the one piece of advice you would give them?
It might sound a bit cliched. However, I would say try and learn from every experience.
Yes,
The good and the bad, and
all those mistakes.
all the mistakes,
Yeah,
the mistake. And actually, I think you probably learn more from the negative or what you
yeah,
perceive to be the bad or the mistakes than you probably do from those good experiences. To be honest, I
yeah.
think that's really key. If I could add another piece, it probably would be don't be so fixed
Right.
about
Okay.
what what success may look like for you, what that attainment needs to look like. I've just talked about how linear my career progression has been, and I'm not too sure if I had my time again, if that's the right thing for me, or if that was a benefit in
Yeah.
that way. It just was the way I saw it.
Yeah.
And I think I was quite focused on that. But as a result, did I miss out on other opportunities? I'm sure I did. You know,
I think I'd take a word that you used earlier. I think if I had one piece of advice, it would be that be curious.
yeah,
Be nosy, is it?
yeah,
To use your words. I think maybe when I was younger, I wasn't brave enough to ask some of the questions that I thought were the daft questions. I wish I'd asked the daft questions now.
yeah,
I wish I'd put my hand up and been a little bit braver and disagreed occasionally or questioned occasionally. I think age and experience probably has given me a little bit more confidence to put my hand up and say, I know I should know about all these things on TikTok, but I actually don't. And let me speak to some people who do know about it, and maybe not be so frightened, if that's the right word, to put my hand up and say I don't know.
yeah, agreed. I've worked in places where I've been the only marketeer
Okay.
or the most senior marketer. So your voice and how you represent the team is it's on you, and that pressure to know everything
Yes.
plus any type of marketing output is definitely there at times. That being said, I think in smaller organizations or in smaller teams, asking the awkward
Yeah.
question, um, I personally found it much easier to do as
Yeah.
opposed to working in an environment where there's a bigger marketing team and there's more peers, and putting yourself outside your comfort zone to ask
Yeah.
or to say that I don't really understand that.
Yeah.
I think is personally for me, I found quite difficult at times.
Yeah. And I think finding along that line, one of the things I wish I'd done or had the opportunity to do earlier on in my career is find those mentors and find those friends almost in the industry who I could have a safe space with to ask those questions. And I guess now as a more senior leader, I hope that, some of my team or, people in other teams feel that they can potentially use me as, as that ear, as someone to ask those questions for. And part of the reason I'm doing this, this series of podcasts is because I want to ask some of the questions that maybe I was a little bit too afraid to ask all those years ago. I think the power of mentorship and having people to look up to, whether that be in your own organisation or outside of it, is really important. Have you ever had or used, formal mentorship in your career?
Yeah, indeed. I totally agree. I think you put it really well, we're finding a safe place or a safe person or people that you're able to confide in and to gain further information from, I think is crucial. You need that help in your career, no matter what discipline you're working in my opinion. For me personally, I would say, again, it's probably a group of people.
Okay.
When it's people that perhaps don't even, well, not perhaps, there's people that don't even work in my discipline, but I can speak to them about challenges I may be up against or ways to proceed, particularly around managing people. But indeed, strategic decisions that need to be made. I've always found that to be quite useful. And also kind of maintaining a bit of the peer group, again, around some of the partners and vendors that can show a different perspective or help to put into context how the marketplace is moving through other customers or other partners that they could be working with. I also think helps to put things in context. On a personal note, there's previous bosses of mine that I'm in close contact with, and they offer that compass to me, that mentor opportunity. It's less formal than what it used to be, but I can count on them, and I hope they feel the same. So when I need them, they are there for me to call with the oddest question or when I'm stuck at a crossroads.
And it's interesting, isn't it? Sometimes you find that the people that you start talking to about one subject actually help you on something else. And, to put it really into context, when we worked together for a time, didn't we, on our social media strategy? But I found at the time I had more questions for you, and you gave me as much support on the subject of how do I grow the team and how do I pitch to our leadership team as was at the time, because I want to grow the team. And we started talking about social media, but actually ended up talking about how you should structure a marketing team. And so I guess for me on that one, it's you can get the best advice from some unexpected places. So to always have your ears open and always, and use those contacts you've got for any subject. Don't expect just because they're an expert in one area, they can't offer you advice in another area.
Yeah, I totally agree. I also think, like, if you take that and the way, previous conversations and support that we both give one another, it's also that when you're going into something and really analysing, let's say, a technical thing, social media in this instance, it's actually you need to bring something back and implement that in a way that works with the structure of the business or the existing organisation that you're in. So how is that going to be implemented? How is it going to be adapted? What are the things? So actually having the full context, it's going to make it succeed more so. There's lots of different projects that we're working on currently. It's at Sally Beauty, and it's like, before we can get to one thing, we need to unpick another. So, for example, before we can, I don't know, deliver on direct mail, we need to make sure we've got an active database. How are we managing the database? Or we need to make sure that consents are in place. So as opposed to just the end goal, there is a number of different steps or different areas that need to be considered.
Okay,
in getting there.
You've beautifully segued into direct mail and print beautifully. And of course, I want to talk about this. The podcast's called Great Minds Print Alike. Knowing some of your career history, I know you've always had a love affair with print. As have I. And of course, now I'm lucky enough to work in an organisation where print is at the core of what we do. Talk to me about why you think print is still so relevant to today's marketer.
Oh, I see print as an emotional tool. I really do, because of, that I'm already doing it now, but it's the texture, it's the tactile, and what that represents. It's really a value signifier, no matter what it is. With it being an A5 flyer, to a luxury brochure, to a fold out piece, to a light box canvas or whatever. They are value signifiers, and for marketing, it does a job that, beyond what the message or the creative or the copy, that's applied to that as a format.
Yeah.
I think it's really, really important.
Do you think it's undervalued by a lot of marketers today in today's digital age? Do you think a lot of people have forgotten about it?
I think in places it is, but what I think is quite interesting, I mean, if you take retail, for example, there's a fair few D2C organisations that are now opening physical stores.
Yes. Yeah.
And so I feel like print is similar there. It's been, discounted for email, for social media and so on. But there is still a tangible output that needs to come from those sorts of exchanges. I mean, if you take social media and a lot of the influencer activity, what do they get? They get they get a seeding box.
Yes.
What is that?
Yeah.
And they get a guide or a brochure or some information that goes with that, or the photo opportunity is created with some sort of like signage and so on. So I think it's different to what it was.
Yeah.
But I definitely think it's coming back more so in the fold.
And I think, particularly you mentioned direct mail. When we talk about direct mail, the once upon a time, it was the whole, spray and pray situation. You just sent out volume. We can be so clever now as marketers with our direct mail, with the pieces that we send to people. Personalization is, it's a given now, but we can get cleverer and cleverer in terms of how we use it. And I'm always delighted to see retail organisations or e-commerce businesses specifically using direct mail. And you look at these brands who've been known to be e-commerce only. And Gymshark's a great example, isn't it?
Yeah.
Who've opened high street retail. My dream now is for Gymshark to start using more direct mail. That would be something that I would love to see out there. But I think we can be so clever now with print that where we couldn't be maybe 10, 15 years ago.
Yeah, I think the personalisation needs to be considered much broader than probably what it is. It's not just being addressed to Helen versus Dara. It's actually localization. It's personalising the format. Yeah. Personalising the message, of course. That should be happening. Yeah. But the formats, the way in which it's delivered are all part of that process. Yes. And that's where, to really connect with the customer, you should be playing.
Okay. So I guess, what specific role do you think print plays in building relationships in your organisation, in Sally Beauty, at the moment?
Our key area is our direct mail piece. Yep. So we send a 16 to a 24 page direct mail piece at the start of each campaign to confirm to the customer the promotions and the new brands or the deals that we will have on professional hair and beauty products. Yep. That acts as triggering the purchase intent and being the key driver to drive traffic and sales conversion online and into store. I think the second piece that we use direct mail for is really that influence seeding. Yep. And the PR activity as well. So we are heavily support. We're a multi-branded business, so we support and drive reach and awareness through those PR pieces across our various different countries. So we use it in kind of two ways, both, I guess, at the start of the consumer journey, purchase intent, awareness, and so on. But that's really the role in this business. Yeah.
Okay. So if you were looking for one piece of innovation, so to speak, in print going forward for Sally Beauty, what would that be?
We are probably at the cusp of starting to reset or evolve again from a DM piece perspective. And I think certainly for the direct mail piece that goes out with the deals and offers, it's time to look at that one again in more detail. Be it the format or the way in which we deliver it, and indeed how we can make that more personalised and specified to the professionals that we reach in that.
Okay. Dara, thank you so much for your time today. It's been a privilege, as always, to spend time with you and get a chance to chat to you about your career and also chat to you about, of course, print in our industry. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
If you'd like to subscribe to our channel, please click below. And if you've got any questions or if you've got any subjects that you'd like us to cover in Great Minds Print Alike, please let us know in the comments.